sexy people of the internet. It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Scandinavian jawbreakers, Harmagedon. The band's new album, Dystopian Dreams, will be released on November 17th via Svart Records.
Ah, is this from Svart? Interesting, Dave.
Harmagedon offer up a nightmare future on their debut album, Dystopian Dreams. With a refreshingly modern concoction of melodic death metal and crust punk. This three-piece riff machine from Stockholm, Sweden,
Stockholm
is a raw festering carcass of dynamic grind and roll, featuring members of Martyrdom and Freedom raising hell once again. Harmagedon's debut record, Dystopian Dreams, is a fusion of heaviness that is difficult to pin down, but makes all the damn sense in the world.
All the damn.
With focus on primal minimalism but maximum animalism, Dystopian Dreams is the ground zero of an explosive power trio summoning raw energy into being. With no frills and no gimmicks, just relentless heaviness, Harmagedon is a matured brew of crust punk, or D-beat, infused with ravishing death metal. Dystopian Dreams is made by adepts of distortion and grime to be imbibed? Never heard that word before. By connoisseurs of rage and chord fury. Recorded live at their own...
It is, wasn't it?
At their own studio, Dystopian Dreams was conjured with the help of Fred Forsberg of Mass Worship at the controls, capturing Harmagedon's wildfire and blending this dense stew together. With the addition of Magnus Lindberg of Cult of Luna mastering...
He's another one!
Everywhere.
Fucking
Dystopian
hell, man.
Dreams has that exceptional flavour of a future classic, where all the cogs and wheels of this merciless weapon fire on all cylinders. So there we go. So Duncan,
Yeah.
the year of death metal continues.
Yeah.
This
Also,
thing-
can we just say, the name of the band, Harmagedon, absolutely fucking amazing. I love it. Very, very, very close. Very, very close. Dangerously close to my signature sandwich, the Harmagedon, which has layers of cold meats upon itself, and then for no reason at all, a slice of well-fired gammon in the centre sets it off. Little fried egg there. The Harmagedon,
But
not to
using
be confused with Harmagedon.
yeah,
Which,
always
is
with
much more sinister.
the ends of the loaf though, Duncan. Never the middle of the loaf.
No, I was like, goes on a what's your Dave? It goes on a bloomer. It's a giant
God's
fucking
sake.
sandwich. Like your jaw will be tired at the end of it, but your stomach and taste buds, thankful.
You've changed, man.
Hey, even if you buy a bloomer or a baguette, you still go for the ends, Dave. Always go for the ends.
The money's
That's
changed you,
little
man. The
shit.
big bucks have just changed you.
I
Anyway,
know, I mean, what can I say? This review money finally came rolling in. And now I am ankle deep in bread.
Bloomers.
Living the dream.
So, this one on Svart Records? Svart Records, you say?
Yeah.
A wee change? Death metal album with Svart Records? Oh, I'll check that out.
Well, it's kind of, yeah. I mean, death metal. Right, we're getting to it. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
We're going to
Yeah.
get into it. We're going to
Yeah.
talk. Dave, you know what we should do on this video? We should talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, I mean, we're saying death metal, but it's not a straight up death metal album. And I think that's possibly why it's on Svart Records.
Yes.
Because
Other from the fact that it's also Scandinavian, and that's their brand.
yeah. The Svart tend to gravitate towards bands that are doing something with a bit of a twist, or have a certain kind of character about them. And actually, after listening to this album, fits very well with Svart Records.
100%.
Has that streak about it. Yeah, I love the styles, like the kind of crust punk and the D-beat and the sludge. they go hand in hand. You know, when it comes to merging it with death metal, fits perfectly.
Yep.
And I feel like these guys have actually kind of portioned out that mixture just right, or that sandwich, even if you wanted. But
I'm hungry now.
but
Stop talking about food.
but I feel like they've fused it very well. Like it doesn't sound like they are constantly switching from genre to genre.
Yep.
It's blended in a way that you don't go, oh, here's the death metal bit, or here's the sludge part. It's combined into this big, like 29-minute swamp of filthy riffs and anarchic kind of rhythms. And it's just one of those albums that kind of keeps running at you the whole time. Every track kicks off with like either a big kind of opening riff, or they just kind of crash in as a whole band and just hit you as hard as they can. The kind of punkier side of the band is just like so full of venom, like it's just really fucking nasty. And then the death, to be honest, the death metal side of it, I feel like is probably the most subtle of all the genres on this.
100%. So I like the fact that they're leaning in with that, like album artwork wise, and I mean it differentiates them for sure.
Yeah,
it's actually the element of the entire composition of the album that's handled with the most care.
Yeah.
Like they don't follow any sort of cliche at all with it, which I kind of love about it. Is there as an influence, but it's not prominent in any way, shape, or form. And when it does rear its head, like at the end of Sadness Comes, where you get like the riff becomes a death metal riff, even though it's not been a riff for the majority of the track. That's the moments where I'm like, that's fucking really smart.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, you would never have heard that riff, and all they do is halftime it and just make it sound heavier, and you're like, like that's smart songwriting, and it's also it goes to show the breadth of their influences as songwriters, that they can write something in one particular way and then be thinking about how they could transition it.
Yeah.
Not that far removed from what they're doing to make it sound like it is actually something else than where it started.
Yeah. I feel like the kind of death metal stuff is always kind of like lingering in the background a little bit, but it never sounds like they're just channeling that style. It's always got, you know, that kind of slant of something else with it. Even on tracks like Straight Outta Hell, where they do the slow ride cymbal kind of groove riff, the riff still has like a touch of like kind of thrash or a little bit of kind of hardcore in it. Very much like, I felt like when I was listening to this, it reminded me a lot of like Wolverine Blues by Entombed. They work that album in a similar way, where they just kind of blend all these styles together, but they never like just be like, oh, here's a death metal track. It's all kind of blended very well. My favorite kind of side of this band though was probably the kind of bluesy kind of sludge parts of the album. Controlled Chaos is just like one of those moments where that groove kicks in and you're just like, oh Jesus, that's so good. It's got a big kind of wah infused bass, kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of like Church of Misery when those moments came in, especially where those parts where it gets a little hazier and almost like kind of psychedelic in the kind of bass playing. The lead work also adds something of a kind of retro kind of classic vibe to this as well.
The Reckoning's full of that. It just expands that track out from being what would be a relatively generic sounding kind of sludgy blues song into something far more interesting.
It sometimes makes the album sound older than it actually is with that kind of vibe it's got. But the tracks like The Reckoning have also got that little bit of kind of melody in theirs, which was a nice touch. Or even the kind of like the solo on Expedition, where it kind of gives you these little moments of light in amongst all that chaos. The vocal tone though from Tim Rosenquist is I love the way this has been captured in the recording. His tone is just really gravelly and full of character, and it fits this kind of style perfectly, to be honest.
It's the one that actually, when I was thinking about, like, from when you were describing from the press statement there, it does feel like you took a death metal vocalist and trained them to do crust punk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that kind of crusty tone, but the range and register is in the death metal register. A crust punk vocalist would generally do it that tone, but more mid-range to higher range.
Yeah.
But because it sits in that guttural range, is definitely that's where that description most makes sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. I also like that there was these little kind of flickers of kind of like melancholic kind of melody on the title track. I think when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I really like those little flashes of that. I would even suggest leaning into that a little bit more. I think it kind of opened up the track a little bit.
Opens in a way which would instantly made me think of South of Heaven by Slayer in the best possible way. I mean that in a bit like where it hits in something you're just like,
Yeah, I think
yes.
I think
It's
that
like you're trying to put your arm down, but the horns are still. You're like, fucking
Yeah.
no.
yeah.
Amazing.
I think it gave it more of a hook as well, like just that little bit of kind of that bit of melody. I liked that they kept Black Lung until the last track. It's like a absolutely furious like album closer, probably the fastest track on the album, and it kind of gives you that like final boost of energy to get you to the finish line. And it did actually when it finished, I was like, I'm just gonna hit play on that once more because although it finishes really fast and furious, it kind of made me appreciate how good those kind of like slow groovy tracks were as well, and how much I just kind of enjoyed kind of basking in that big sludgy riff for a few minutes on each track. I think it's a really strong album for a debut. I think it's very well done. I think there was maybe a couple of tracks that didn't fully deliver that like sense of satisfaction. I think was it Sadness Comes. I think it was maybe just like kind of repeated itself a little bit too much, and I was waiting on a kind of climax coming, which didn't really happen. But I also have to remember this is a debut album, and that type of intuition maybe might not come this early on in a debut. So I think these guys absolutely have the tools to do bigger things going forward. I think all the foundations are there. They've clearly got the playing chops and the personality. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they actually do next on the next album. Loved the production on this. I think that kind of swampy kind of griminess that it has is just like it's a texture that is right up my street. I love the sound of this. It's got character. It's not overly polished in the slightest. As I said, it was recorded live, so it's got that kind of feel about it, but it still hits very hard for an album that's been recorded live. Yeah, really enjoyed it for a debut. Looking forward to seeing what these guys do next. What about yourself? What do you think?
9 songs, 29 minutes. Ooh. I'm in heaven right now, right? It's literally, I'm like thankfully, mercifully, this week's recordings, you can work out what we recorded when by what we're wearing. Relatively short albums across the board. Enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah, I think these guys are onto something. I genuinely do. I think there is a really good mix of influences. I actually also think the album is really well structured, and that you get those sides of pure up snarl sludge with moments that feel like they have a more progressive element about them. And those are really, really, really well spaced. Like yourself, Black Lung plays against the grain in the best possible way. It's the track that is the oddity on the album.
Yeah.
Even vocally, he is stretching his vocal out with the register to the point of breaking. And that's how it closes out. It's just him going, ah! Like, I love that element about it. And we're saying that it increases the pace. It's not blast beats.
No.
Like, it's just a more mid-paced track.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else before it, it sounds colossally faster.
Yeah.
They're a very smart band, like for this this stage of their writing career. In that, compositionally speaking, I think they bring a lot to the table, and it's all the stuff that they're doing, not necessarily on any other instrument except the guitar. The guitar work is fundamentally impressive. Specifically on how it continues to push things like a little bit of lead work. Some of the kind of reverb on the guitar as well where it's not the most exceptional thing you've heard, is actually very smartly placed under this rhythm, which makes it sound transcendental, and I think that that works very, very well for them as well. They've got riffs for days. I mean, not one riff on this is kind of stock generic. It kind of, once again, it sounds familiar to other things you've heard, but actually in this context, it works really, really, really well. Vocally, love his tone. I think it's gritty, it's gravelly, it's snarly, it's crusty, it's raw, and it's death metally. And you can hear him project. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everything is just like, you almost hear the breath before the word comes out. And as a result of that, there's impact behind it that I think there could be a lesser confident producer that would put that too loud in the mix. Actually, it sits a little bit lower than you would expect, but with that kind of roomy, reverby tone that's on it, it actually works really, really well. It kind of slips in to about the same level as the guitar, which has that kind of 90s death metal sound. You mentioned like bands like Entombed earlier on. You go back and listen, that's their production. Like, the vocals are never at the forefront. They kind of exist like in line with or slightly below the guitar, and then the roomy reverby sound comes out, and it sounds like someone standing in the middle of a fucking abandoned, burned out Norwegian church with instruments playing. It works for their sound. The sludgy, bluesy stuff is really fucking good, and that's the stuff I wish they did a little bit more of on the album. Like the stuff that they have and where they're placed, whether it's on, like I mentioned before, the Reckoning or Controlled Chaos, or even a little bit on Expedition, those tracks stand out, and they're placed in such a way that they do stand out, but there's elements of that where I'm like, that you could push that a little more and not compromise the overall sound that you have there. I think they're going to grow into that. I think it's a skill they have, is one they're kind of deploying sparingly in their songwriting, but they could easily lean into that more, and it would. I think it would make their album flourish. At times, it reminded me of kind of like the guitar tone is like a kind of more rusty or caius. It has this kind of deserty feel as well, which I really, really enjoyed. Like he really like beaten up early Queens of the Stone Age. Those elements are all in there, and to picture them from where they are in the world, production notwithstanding the conversation, they don't necessarily sound like a Scandinavian band, and I mean that as a compliment. When you add that production on, it's hard not to say that it sounds like it's from the kind of Stockholm sort of Norway area. It has that vibe about it, and certainly fits in there. So I think they're brimming with ideas. I think they've got like a lot of really, really healthy influences that are coming through and they're playing. I think they're already very, very accomplished songwriters. Like yourself, I think there's maybe one or two steps where I would like them to be a little bit more daring, try something a little bit more out with the wheelhouse that they bring. But that's me reaching for things to knock them down on. As a debut, this is pretty fucking strong. And also they have a great band name. I can't stress that enough. I keep coming back to Harmagedon as a band, and I kind of feel shameful that no one else has come up with that. That's a scathing indictment on the metal community as a whole, that no one has come up with that yet. We had a Limp Bizkit before we had a Harmagedon. For shame, metal. For shame.
Nice. Okay, so final thing, scores for Dystopian Dreams by Harmagedon. There's a lot to like here, Duncan.
Oh, you're just like ripping from the Duncan playbook here, eh?
A man once said. Really good production, some really good ideas in this. I love the blend of styles. I really like that kind of bluesy, sludgy side of the band. Also like that little touch of melody added in as well. I like to hear more of that. For a debut, very strong. I'm going to go 4.4 out of 5 for this one. What are you thinking?
We've synced up pretty much all night, and we're going to continue doing it again. This will round out the third review, giving you 4 out of 5.
Nice.
I think this is like really, really good. These are guys to watch. I think we're not that far away from something a bit more refined, a bit more focused, and when that comes, we are all in trouble. I think they have it. I'm very, very, very excited. I hope that these are the sort of guys I want to see live. Some bands are like, this is a great album. Other bands, you're like that. This is a great album. This is going to sound amazing live.
Yeah.
And you can already tell that because it was recorded live.
Yeah.
It's going to sound heavy as fuck. So give me it. Harmagedon. Sweden is just across the pond. It's not that far. It's about an hour and a half on a plane. Come on. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Harmagedon, Dystopian Dreams, out on November 17th on Svart Records. Links below to the band, to the pre-order. Check it out. Let us know what you think. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Every time.